I've been sitting on this story for almost 2 years now. I typed it out twice before and deleted it both times. Because honestly, reading it back, I sounded paranoid. I sounded like the guy in the office everyone quietly agrees to stop inviting to lunch. But my wife told me last month that I still check the sent folder of my email every night before bed. Every night, like a ritual. And she's right, I do. And I think the only way I stop doing that is if I finally tell this whole thing start to finish. So here it is. I'm not going to use real names. The company doesn't matter either. I'll just say it's a mid-sized logistics firm headquartered off Sawmill Road in Columbus, Ohio, the kind of gray 2-story building you drive past 1,000 times and never once look at. I'll call myself Mark. I'll call him Daniel. Some background so the rest makes sense. I'd been at this company 9 years. Started as a coordinator right out of Ohio State, worked up to senior project manager. I was good. I'm not saying that to brag. It's actually important for the story that you understand I was good, because everything that happened only worked because of how solid my reputation was at the start. You can't drain an empty tank. My tank was full. When a client account caught fire, leadership called me. When we onboarded the Louisville distribution center and everything that could go wrong did go wrong, I lived in a Hampton Inn off I-71 for 3 weeks and fixed it. That was my currency there. Mark handles it. Daniel joined in the spring. I want to be careful here because hindsight is a liar. When I tell you what he was like in those first months, part of my brain is screaming that the signs were all there, but they weren't. That's the thing I need you to actually believe. There were no signs. If you met Daniel tomorrow, you would like him. You'd like him within 4 minutes. I've thought a lot about what exactly made him likable, and the closest I can get is this. He made you feel remembered. You'd mention your kid had a soccer tournament, some throwaway comment on a Tuesday, and Thursday morning he'd ask how the tournament went. He knew our office manager's dog had knee surgery. He knew I take my coffee with 1 sugar, even though I always tell people black. And one morning he'd just set the cup on my desk, the 1 sugar already in it, and grinned like we'd known each other 20 years. I'm going to come back to the coffee. Remember the coffee? He was hired as a project coordinator, technically 2 levels under me, and from week 1 he attached himself to my orbit, and I let him, because why wouldn't I? He was hungry, he was sharp, and God knows I was drowning. That spring we had the Memphis contract ramping up, and I was doing 60-hour weeks. So when Daniel started offering to take things off my plate, it felt like oxygen. He'd sit in on my status meetings and take notes so I didn't have to. He'd draft the follow-up emails. I'd skim them, hit send. Sometimes I didn't even skim. He had this phrase. He said it maybe the second month he was there. He said, "You focus on the big picture, I'll handle the noise." I actually repeated that phrase to my wife at dinner like it was a good thing. I said, "This new kid, he gets it." Okay? I want to stop the story for a second because this is the first thing I need to explain, and I didn't learn the name for it until much later, sitting in my car in a Kroger parking lot reading psychology articles on my phone at 11 at night like a crazy person. It's called reciprocity conditioning. Human brains run a ledger. Someone does you a favor, the ledger records a debt, and the debt creates warmth, and the warmth creates a category. This person is my ally. And here's the flaw in the system. Once your brain files someone under ally, it stops auditing them. Literally stops. The same email that you'd read twice if a stranger drafted it, you don't read at all when your ally drafts it. Small, consistent favors are not just kindness. Functionally, they're a key. Every coffee, every covered meeting, every "I'll handle the noise" was Daniel turning that key 1 more degree. By summer, he had my calendar, delegate access, so he could schedule for me. He had visibility into my inbox because I'd asked IT to set it up. I requested it so he could send follow-ups when I was traveling. He sat close enough to hear my phone calls. Later, much later, I did the math on what he actually had access to, and I had to stop making the list because it made me physically sick. But the point is, none of it was taken. All of it was given. I handed him everything with both hands and said, thank you while I did it. The first incident was in August. There was a produce client out of Cincinnati, refrigerated freight, extremely deadline sensitive. and I had confirmed a pickup window with their ops director on a Thursday for the following Tuesday. I remember the call. I remember I was standing by the window during it, watching the guy in the parking lot try to parallel park a box truck badly. And I remember confirming Tuesday twice because the ops director had a thick accent and I wanted to be sure. Tuesday. Then I sent the standard confirmation email. Monday afternoon, the client calls, absolutely losing his mind because our system showed Wednesday and half his product was going to sit an extra day. And I said, that's impossible. I confirmed Tuesday, it's in the email. And I pulled up the email while he was still yelling to quote it back to him. And the email said Wednesday. I read it maybe 15 times. My name, my signature block. Sent from my address at 4:52 that Thursday, Wednesday. I wanted to describe the specific feeling because if you've never had it, it's hard to convey. It's not embarrassment exactly. It's vertigo. It's your own memory becoming unreliable ground. I stood there thinking, I was at the window, the box truck, the accent. I said Tuesday twice, and this email was saying, no, you didn't. And an email is evidence, and a memory is just a story you tell yourself. So which do you think the client believed? Which do you think leadership believed? Which honestly, after enough hours, did I believe? I ate the mistake, apologized, expedited, cost us money, took the hit in front of my director, and Daniel came by my desk at the end of that day, put his hand on my shoulder and said, man, happens to everyone, I've got your back. And I was grateful. I want that on the record. The man was 7 weeks into demolishing my life, and I was grateful to him. Nothing else happened for a while, and that's important too, the spacing. If it had been every week, I'd have smelled it. It was every 5-6 weeks. October budget spreadsheet I'd built for the Memphis account turned up with formula errors in the version that went to finance. Errors I'd swear on my kids I didn't make. November, I apparently no-showed a call with a carrier rep, except there was no invite in my calendar, and everyone else on the thread had one. And the meeting organizer forwarded me the original invite showing my address right there in the recipient list. December, a client in Nashville insisted I'd verbally promised them a rate lock I would never have had authority to promise. And they were so specific about it, they quoted my phrasing. Each one alone was nothing. A busy guy dropped a ball. Everyone makes mistakes, right? That's what people kept saying to me. Everyone makes mistakes. And every time someone said it, their voice was a little kinder. And the kindness was worse than anger because you know what that particular kindness means in an office. It means the story about you is changing. Leadership doesn't experience incidents, they experience trend lines. And my trend line, 9 years of Mark handles it, was bending degree by degree toward Mark used to be sharp. Here's the part that took me the longest to see, and even now describing it makes my jaw tight. Every single time I stumbled, Daniel was the one who caught it. Caught the spreadsheet errors before finance escalated, fixed them, mentioned it gently in front of my director. No big deal, just cleaning up some formulas from Mark's file, rebuilt the carrier relationship after my no-show, smoothed the Nashville client over. He never once criticized me, never. And in 3 years, I cannot recall one negative word out of his mouth about me. And that was the genius of it. He didn't need to say I was failing. He just needed to keep being seen, rescuing me. The rescue is the accusation. Every save wrote a sentence in the office's collective head. Mark is coming apart, and thank God Daniel is there to hold him together. Second mechanism, and this one I want you to really sit with, because this is the one that will protect you someday. There's a version of gaslighting everyone knows from movies. Someone leaning in saying that never happened. You're imagining things. That version is crude and it's risky because it requires confrontation. What Daniel ran was cleaner. He never argued with my memory, not once. He just quietly edited the record, the email, the invite, the file, and then let my memory lose the argument against the record all by itself. Nobody has to call you crazy if the evidence does it for them. The most effective saboteur in the world never says a single false word out loud. He just makes sure the paper trail does the lying and paper doesn't blush. And the third thing, the one with the name I hate because of how well it worked on everyone including me, competence framing. You do not have to be better than a man to replace him. You only have to become the narrator of his mistakes. The person who explains the error, corrects the error, absorbs the error, is automatically perceived as the more competent one. Even if, and I need you to hold on to this, even if he personally manufactured every single error, he's narrating. An arsonist and fireman, same guy. The Office only ever sees the fireman. By the following spring, I wasn't sleeping right. I'd started photographing my own screen after sending important emails with my phone. Standing in my own office, photographing my own monitor like a tourist, because I no longer trusted the sent folder to say tomorrow what it said today. I didn't tell anyone I was doing that. My wife found the photos on our shared album and asked me what they were, and I lied to her. I said it was for work documentation. She knew I was lying. That was around when the checking the sent folder every night thing started, and like I said, it never stopped. The Endgame was the quarterly business review in April, our second biggest account, a retail chain out of Indianapolis, renewal year. I'd led that relationship for 6 years. 3 days before the QBR, their procurement VP calls my director, not me, my director, cold with anger, asking why our renewal proposal came in 22% above the numbers we'd aligned on in February. There was a proposal sent from my email address on a Sunday night with pricing I had never seen, formatted exactly the way I format things, my phrasing, my signature, my everything. I said I didn't send it. I said it in the conference room with 6 people looking at me, and I heard my own voice while I said it, and I understood in real time how it sounded, because for 8 months the record had been beating my memory in every dispute publicly, and by now I didn't do it. Coming from Mark, didn't sound like a defense. It sounded like a symptom. I watched my director's face do something I'd never seen it do in 9 years, which was pity. And pity from your boss is a verdict. They didn't fire me. It was worse in the way that slow things are worse. They moved me off Indianapolis for continuity, they said, and moved Daniel on. People agreed it was reasonable. I remember sitting in that meeting agreeing it was reasonable. That's the part I still can't fully forgive myself for, that they got me to nod along to it. By May, there was a conversation about whether the senior PM structure still made sense. I started updating my resume at my kitchen table at midnight, hiding the laptop screen from my wife like it was an affair. What saved me had nothing to do with me being smart. I want to be honest about that, because I've heard people tell stories like this where they figure it out through brilliant detective work, and I didn't figure out anything. I got lucky. The company brought in an outside IT security firm that June routine cyber insurance audit, totally unrelated, some checkbox requirement from our new policy. And a technician going through account configurations flagged mine. My account had rules on it, mail flow rules, scheduled delayed sends, auto modification scripts on outgoing drafts, a forwarding filter shunting copies of certain threads to an external address, layered, dated, maintained. The earliest rule had a creation date in June. 2 years prior, Daniel's 6th week at the company. 6th week. Before the Cincinnati email, before most of the coffee, I told you to remember the coffee. When the security guys walked me through the timeline, that's what I kept snagging on stupidly, the coffee, because the one sugar thing, him knowing my real coffee order, that was week 3 or 4. He was already watching me that closely in week 3. The friendliness was never personality. It was surveillance, with a smile on it. And the access log showed the rules were created and maintained from my own workstation during hours when I could prove badge records, meeting attendees, that I wasn't at it, and cross-referencing those windows against who was in the building. On my floor, unaccounted for, there was exactly one name every single time. He never hacked anything, by the way. There was no malware, nothing sophisticated. The security firm concluded he most likely just watched me type my password, stood behind me some morning in his first month, coffee in hand probably, making me feel remembered and read my hands. So they fired him quietly. Companies like that one do not want the story to exist. There was no prosecution, no announcement, nothing on his record. HR used the phrase policy violations. He had another job within 2 months, I know, because I looked. Everyone looks. Don't pretend you wouldn't look. Different city, bigger company, project management. Sometimes I think about whoever sits next to him now. Whether somebody there just mentioned their kid's soccer tournament. My name got cleared, technically. There was a meeting where my director said some things, and Indianapolis came back to me, and on paper, everything was restored. But I'll tell you what doesn't restore. For 8 months, everyone I worked with had practiced thinking of me as diminished, and practice makes permanent. Reputations don't snap back, they heal crooked, like a bone set wrong. Some people never fully updated. I could see it in meetings. A half second of surprise when I was right about something. I left the company the following year. My own choice, decent terms, and the new place is fine, and I still photograph my screen sometimes 2 years later. I know it's not rational. Knowing doesn't help. So here's what I actually came here to say. The thing I'd want someone to have told me: you will never catch a person like Daniel by watching for hostility, because there won't be any. Zero. He will be the warmest presence in your professional life. The tell is not in how they treat you. The tell is structural, and you have to force yourself to look at structure, which feels paranoid and cynical and unfair to nice people. And you have to do it anyway. Ask one question. Look at the people closest to your work, closest to your access, closest to your mistakes, and ask, who becomes more valuable every time I become less? Ask it about the person who'd hurt the most to suspect, especially them. Because proximity plus benefit is not proof of anything, but it is always worth an audit. Check who has access to your accounts. Actually, check today the delegate permissions you granted 3 years ago and forgot. Read your own mail rules. It takes 4 minutes. I'll bet most of you have never once looked. The most dangerous enemy you'll ever have will not fight you. He'll bring you coffee with 1 sugar and volunteer to hold your ladder. And the whole time you're climbing, you'll be thanking him. Anyway, that's it. That's the whole thing. My wife says telling it should help with the scent folder ritual. I'll let you know.